I guess to start off, would you like to give us an intro of what's Popl to anyone who doesn't know and how far along you guys?
Yeah. So my name is Jason. I'm the CEO at Popl. And Popl is a digital business card platform for individuals and teams. So we create digital cards and we allow members of either themselves or part of a team to share those digital cards with others. And that shares their information and also captures the information of the person they're meeting. So a really nice way to collect contact information and share their own. We have raised only a seed round, but we've grown quite well based on just revenue. So we currently have 36 full-time employees, and our ARR is in the 8 figures. I'll just go ahead and say that.
Dude, that's so awesome, man. I don't think it's hard to understate how impressive that is. And
thank you.
It's one of the things that I really admire about what you've accomplished. And I was actually at an event the other day, and I pulled out this. It was like a founder networking event. I gave a little talk. This came in so handy. Like I didn't have to like give everyone my number, and afterwards I had their number already saved. So that was so clutch. And
amazing.
I've been loving the duffel bracelet and everything.
Oh yeah, gotta have that duffel branded product. Okay, we're back.
Are you okay? Dude, your thing just fell. Is your laptop on?
I know. Laptop is fine. Oh man.
How did you manage to grow so fast, so well, so capital efficiently? What are some like secrets that you employed or things that you learned along the way?
Yeah. So the amazing thing about Popl and digital business cards in general is that there is a huge viral component to them. And what that is essentially when a user shares a digital card with someone else, they're not only getting value in that they're connecting with that person, but they're also showing that person what a digital business card is, right? So in a way, them using the product, they're also demonstrating it and almost selling it to that person, right? Showing the value. And so we have figured out ways to take that interaction and bring the non-Popl user who is meeting the Popl user on a path where they can become part of the ecosystem, right? And we call this viral loops. And so the more users that we have on the platform, the more viral loops come into play where people who meet Popl users are encouraged to join the Popl community. And using these viral loops, we see a lot of growth, both on the individual side and the team side. And that comes in inbound, right? So inbound into either our subscriptions or into our account executives. And so really leaning into viral loops has allowed us to grow very quickly in an organic way without too much funding.
Yeah, and I think what's super impressive is the business model side, right? Like you guys started with hardware and then transitioned to basically B2B SaaS, which is much more high margin, much more scalable. Tell me about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of my favorite topics, right? Is if you look at our P&L from day one to where it is now, hardware, software, or software, hardware. It's like, ooh, yeah. Right? And so we started off as this hardware e-commerce company, and we used TikTok for user acquisition, which was free and organic and a great way for us to grow and get more eyes on the product. And then over time, it's like we built the mobile app. That was our first kind of touch of software. Then we built our subscription for the mobile app. And then we built Popl Teams. And then we built tiers for Popl Teams. And sure enough, it's like one thing after another. And now most of our growth is on the B2B SaaS side.
Yeah, tell me about that TikTok story you shared with me earlier. I think it's amazing. Like, getting scrappy and, doing it yourself and scripting everything and like coming to a magic recipe. Like, how did you know to do that, and what was that experience like?
Yeah, it was an amazing time, David. Like we because it just kind of came together. It was almost just like we were trying things just on the fly. And that's really what TikTok was, right? So we had been pretty familiar with Instagram. This was 2020. And so 2020, TikTok was pretty new. Like TikTok was kind of relatively new at that point. People were still kind of figuring it out, discovering it. And so we were uploading content to Instagram. And I remember we had this idea, let's try TikTok. Kind of like heard about it from a friend, like seems like it's like growing quickly. So we went to UCLA and we met up a friend. Her name is Arav. And we like in 15 minutes shot this video at the gym with her where she walked up to us with the camera and basically just tapped the phone with a Popl tag. And then it loaded her TikTok and then she just walked away all cool with it. And it was like such a like cool, like walk off, like mic drop moment because she was just like, oh yeah, great to meet you. You know, this is me, boop. And then she just walked away. Like she knew it worked and she just like didn't even need to like confirm. She just like walked away all confidently. And then like the clip was just like, you know, a voiceover of me just being like, whoa, like what was that? And then it cut. So a very short clip, took us like 15 minutes to film, and we threw that up on TikTok. Funny thing is, the first 2 times we threw it up didn't really do that well. So we threw it up a third time, right? TikTok's an interesting platform where you can actually post videos over and over again. And they get seen to a different audience each time because of the For You page, right? For You page are followers that are people on the platform that don't follow you. So it's a whole new set of eyes. So the third time we posted it, sure enough, this video caught fire and hit 80 million views in a matter of like 2 months. And so while this video is getting so many views, we were just like watching orders come in on Shopify and like watching our email blow up. And it was like all these DMs. It was awesome. It was like such an exhilarating moment. Yeah.
Wow. Well, hold on. I had no idea you uploaded 3 times. How did you know to do that? Like,
yeah, no, it's a great question. I noticed, I was just like being curious and I noticed that like each time we uploaded a video if we uploaded it again, there was 0 comments that said, didn't you already upload this? Like, didn't you already post this? And I noticed that. I was like, wait a second. It's getting seen on the For You page, which is non-followers, right? People who don't follow you. And each time we posted again, we didn't get a single comment saying that, right? On Instagram, if you posted a video, David, and you posted it twice in a row, someone would be like, yo, I think this is a repost. Like, yeah. I think you posted this twice.
Yeah.
Hey, just wanted to like DM it to you. Hey, just want to let you know. But on TikTok, not even a peep, like just no one even noticed. And so we caught on to that. So every time we created a viral piece of content using our formula, which we discovered worked really well, we posted it over and over again. Like we had a loop. It was like you posted here, posted a month later, posted the next month. And every time it would get millions of views. It was wild.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Wow, that's such a hack.
I know. It was such a hack.
Diminishing returns to that? Like, why don't you just keep doing it?
I wouldn't even say it was diminishing returns. Like it would be so random. Like this time it would get 200K views. Then it would get 4 million. Then it would get like 50K. And then it would get 8 million. Like it was just like, it seemed really random. Like if it hit the algorithm in a good way, because we uploaded it at 4 p.m. on a Thursday, and maybe like one person sent it like to 30 people, then the algorithm was like, oh, okay, a lot of shares, add it to more people. And it ended up just like kind of being kind of a crapshoot where it's like, sometimes it would do well, sometimes it would do really well. And so we caught on to this and continued to repost.
Wow. Yeah, I remember that video just being everywhere. And it's very replayable, you know, so you're like constantly rewatching it.
Exactly.
And that feeds the algorithm. That's awesome. Yeah. When did you decide to kind of like pivot away from TikTok and focusing on that? Because I will say that is such easy free traffic that normally would cost so much if you're paying for it in ads.
It's true. And we pretty much stopped when our users shifted to being more of app users, and our focus started to be more on teams and less on individuals. And to break that down, so first off, the platform that you post content on, if you're going to spend time on that platform, it should be where your ideal customer is spending time, right? If your ideal customer is not spending a lot of time on a platform, it is not a good use of your time to put time into that platform, right? And so learning that we were seeing more of a product market fit with professionals, TikTok became where a lot of those professionals were not spending most of their time, right? These professionals may be spending more time on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn even, right? Which is more of kind of a one-to-one connection with who we're looking for. And so while we did for a while there continue to get millions of views, it was like, these views are going to Shopify to buy a one-off product when we're over here trying to build up our subscription model, right? So it's kind of like a little disconnect in kind of like the ad versus the goal. And additionally, right, like as we moved away from hardware, it's just simply not as viral to show a QR code, right? People love the tap to share. That's like the really cool concept, the like aha magic moment. And so moving away from that and being much more focused on the software solution kind of didn't lend itself to these viral videos.
Yeah, I still get like so many wows when I do it. They're always like, wow, no way.
Yeah.
And, you were telling me about this viral loop that you were building recently. Could you like share an example of one that you've been like tinkering with and like?
Yeah, I don't like to really share this.
Okay, don't share it. But
yeah,
I think
because there's others out there that are trying to do something similar,
Right, obviously. I think there are people who don't realize because you're the face of the brand, and like you do all this like marketing, brand, PR stuff, but you're actually like the technical guy, like building this shit.
I know.
It's like
it's interesting. I appreciate you recognizing. It's I'm often seen as like, there's no way that guy's technical, right? They like see me at like a social event. It's like, oh, he's probably got like some other technical guy. And it's always kind of cool to flip the script there. People meet me and they're like, oh wait, like, you know how to code? It's like, yeah.
You actually love the code?
Yeah, exactly. But no one looks at me and is like, oh, that guy's up till 2 a.m. coding.
Yeah. I was very surprised when I learned that.
Exactly.
Sure. Right. How did you become that way, I guess? Like, were you always that way when you were growing up? And if you were more technical, how did you become more social, and if vice versa? How did that journey happen?
Yeah, I love that question. So going into college, I knew I wanted to be in an engineering track. I went to UCLA as an undeclared engineer, right? Which kind of gives you all these different engineering options. You can kind of pick which one you want. And when I got to UCLA, I remember like taking one CS class just to kind of like feel it out. And I remember just like immediately getting it. It was just so logical. And I'm a very logical guy. Like, logic just makes sense to me. And so when I kind of just got it, right? Like, okay, if then else, right? Like just kind of how the code worked with different structures and different syntax, I quickly realized, you know what, this is my favorite engineering path, as opposed to like civil, environmental, or even like electrical, right? Like just being able to code and build, also being able to build awesome products that I used every day. That was also appealing. So very quickly early on, I was like, I'm going CS. And so I was doing CS, and then I also wanted to be very social in college, right? Like I just finished high school and I was kind of quiet. And so I wanted to just switch that around. I wanted to completely 180 that. And so while I'm in CS classes, I also was like out of class working on my social life. And so sure enough, going through college, those were like my two priorities: be social, be great at coding. And so I finished college and I just like had both those down, right? Like I was like, okay, I know how to be social and have a lot of different friend groups. And I also have this coding ability. And I think that's a big reason why I'm here as a CEO, because I'm able to cultivate culture and keep good relationships while also having that technical view.
Yeah, honestly, I think like once you've been CEO, you appreciate so much more like that ability to do both. like the fact that you can manage engineers and get into the weeds, and like you were showing me literally pull requests that you're reviewing, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Like at the same time, you're also like managing the culture and the people and the relationships. And I know you're really close to everyone at the company. I would love to talk a bit more about that. Like, I know your brother Ryan is like an integral part of Popl, and obviously, like, there are other people in the team that you have relationships with. Like, could you tell me more about what it's like working with family and people close to you?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is one of my favorites, one of my favorite topics. Both my brother and my dad work at the company. And people always ask me, "Oh, is that weird?" Right? Like, does that ever get awkward? Like, what would happen if you had to like let one of them go? Like, that's got to be one of the like toughest things to be able to handle. And I'm really fortunate in that I have a great family, right? My brother is incredibly smart, such a hard worker, very pragmatic, but can also see vision and really is detail oriented. And it's just a great guy overall. And so knowing that growing up, when I get to a point with Ryan where it's like we were finishing college and I had started Popl with my co-founder, Nick. And it was like, Ryan's looking for a data job, right? Like he can either go do data for another company or we can work together as brothers, which we both were like, really, that sounds really appealing. And so sure enough, he joins us and just started working on data for the company. And Ryan, being the awesome guy he is, the incredible smart person he is, it was a great fit. And so fast forward to today, he's grown and just done so much for us and is now our chief product officer. So he's overseeing the product, Popl teams, the Popl app, all of that, and how that's going forward and fitting with the vision. And yeah, I couldn't ask for a better CPO. He's just so awesome. And then shortly after Ryan joined, my dad like has some free time. So he was like, okay, how can I help this company that's growing fast? And my dad does a lot of IP and works with a lot of startups at UC Berkeley through the Skydeck program. Skydeck is like UC Berkeley's accelerator, right? So basically YC, but UC Berkeley's version. And so that's a great fit too, right? So he can add a lot of value as like an advisor. And so sure enough, now my dad's also involved as this like advisor, kind of CFO type person who helps us with financials as well. And family can be tough to work with, but if you trust your family members and they're excited and passionate, then honestly, my advice is bring them in. Like there's no one who's going to be in the trenches with you as much as like your family, right? Like even friends, like friends are great. Like best friends are great, but like family is like a whole nother level. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I think one of the biggest like inspirations for me is Elon, and he started his first company with his brother at 24 actually, and they lived in the lived in the office, showered at the YMCA, like
wow.
And it's like when you're blood like that, I think you can go so far. And there's stories in his biography where they're literally like fighting each other in the office, and I think you have this level of trust and acceptance of one another that you have since you're like literally babies. But yeah, that's amazing. And tell me more about like where you're staying right now and the history of this place, because that's where I first met you. Beautiful spot. You had Justin Khan DJing, like just the best people in LA in Tech Week.
Yeah.
Like, what's that like?
Yeah. So we started Popl during COVID, right? Which just like had all these additional kind of like pieces that lend itself to us trying this remote work style, right? Okay, so COVID, everyone's got to stay at home. I was also like at that time I was at Boeing, and I was also working at home because of COVID. And so leaving Boeing and starting Popl, it was almost just like natural to be like, yeah, we're going to do remote. because it was during COVID, so everyone was like used to it anyway. So we just started off remote, and as the team kept growing, it kept working out well for us. Where it's just like, hey, we're able to have high production and happy team members, even though we're not all coming to an office every day. And people actually appreciated it, right? Like you don't have to have that commute, which takes a lot of your morning, a lot of your afternoon, evening, and that adds up, right? That time. And so we continued to grow coming out of COVID, but staying remote. And that just continued to work well for us because we just had everyone having clear KPIs and clear to-dos. Then we got into Y Combinator in 2021. So, COVID's still happening. And at that point, a lot of us on the founding team realized that we wanted to do YC together. Mm-hmm. YC is an awesome experience. So when you're doing Y Combinator, it's always more fun to do it together than to be like, oh, I'm way across the United States. We're also doing it together, but it's like, I can't, hang out with you guys after. And so we decided to get this house and get this like HQ house in LA. And us on the founding team did YC together in that house. And so that ended up being an awesome move. Like not only were we able to meet with the YC team members like via Zoom, but we could then like talk with each other after and collaborate and have that like quick communication as we were scaling this company. And so coming out of YC, we're loving the house. A lot of the founding team was coming here to work. And so we just kept it. And we kept the house, kept having this kind of, if you were here, work at the house. If you're somewhere else, just work remotely kind of mindset. And it worked out really well for us. And then the next piece of the puzzle was as a social product, this networking product, we started hosting events. So we would like host an event at Popl HQ, which was like, this like nice house. And so people would come all over and come to our house/office for this event. And that was awesome too. So we got like the Popl name out in LA, and we were just becoming well known for throwing these great events where people would meet quality people and would connect using our product. And so, fast forward to today, we're just so excited and happy with that choice because we've gotten so much use out of this house in LA, and the remote is working so well for us with these clear KPIs.
Yeah, no, honestly, I think maybe house is a humble way of putting it, but it's such a beautiful place. And
thank you.
It's crazy when I watch you and I see all the synergies of like work-life harmony. I think you're like the embodiment of the Jeff Bezos work-life harmony. It's not about balance in the sense of like 50-50. I don't see you like really try to separate as much as I see other founders or me personally, like that strong line. But I just see like your work getting benefit from your life and your life getting benefit from your work. And I'm like really inspired by that, to be honest. And
thank you.
I just think it's so cool. Like, honestly, like Popl is one of the few things that I'll actually carry around with me all the time and I'll use, and there's like always an opportunity to use it, which you cannot say for most products. Like the frequency is so good and like the usability, it is extremely viral. Because everyone asks like, what is that?
Yeah, exactly. It's one of my favorite things about the product is that like we at the company use it ourselves, right? So like when we go out to personal events, they're like, let's say we go to a party that's not even like part of Popl. It's still an opportunity to use our product, which is like, lends itself to that personal, professional kind of like overlap of, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I think there's something to be said about loving your product and how that is really like the fundamental layer of success is that you have to love that product and love that customer. I think like there was a point after I left college, like I couldn't really use Duffel anymore. And I've never been like that big of a snacker. So it's like always really challenging to like really empathize, right? And so like, I think one of the superpowers is building something that you love, you genuinely would use, you genuinely want to see in the world. And I think that's what you've done. It's amazing.
It is a great point. And it's one that I love to tell entrepreneurs when they're thinking about starting something is like, are you going to be waking up every day thinking about this problem that you're solving for 10 years? Because if you're not that passionate, then it might not be the right problem to solve.
Yeah, I think the 10 years always gets people, because they don't,
Yeah.
nobody at that age understands what 10 years means. You know, you say that to a 50-year-old, they're like, oh, 10 years. I've lived through a few of those. You tell that to a 20-year-old, they're like, oh, 10 years? Like, that sounds like kind of long. Like, I don't really know.
Yeah.
Like, I'm 5 years in. You're like similar, right? Like, it's a long time. It's really a long time.
It's a time.
You change so much.
It is. Yeah. Like the you, David, that started Duffel versus the you now, so different.
100% different person.
Yeah.
So
but that's good. You know, it's like, change is good.
It is. It sure is. I'm trying to dye my hair in the spirit of change. I'm just like trying to change things up. I'm like embracing the chaos. So
yeah, I hear that.
Yeah, I'm definitely flipping a chapter. So I want to go back a little bit. You mentioned like you came into college with this like desire to be both good social and good at coding, and I think it was so prescient of you, and to understand how high leverage those two things are. Like truly, it's pretty ideal if you ask me. So like, and you also mentioned that you're quiet in high school, which is like, for those who know you, seems very, very hard to believe.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah. It's I think they almost accidentally happened, right? Like the being so quiet in high school really like encouraged me to course correct in such a big way going to college. So I actively was like, I'm going to try super hard to be more social, and inactively trying much harder and putting more time into that, it ended up, having a good outcome there. Whereas someone who's like, I was also social in high school, maybe they're a little bit less focused on that kind of mindset change, right? And so for me, that kind of like full course correct helped me consider that as a priority. And then with the coding, in high school, I was like overclocking my phones. I was like tinkering around with jailbreaking iPhones, kind of like what I would call coding before you're kind of old enough to really actually code and get it. And so that was like my version of like tinkering with technology and learning kind of how that works. And I think that influence came from my parents, both of them being at UC Berkeley, both of them being engineers themselves. I think that in a way, the engineeringness, if that's a word, kind of like rubbed off on me. And then with me tinkering with technology, that combination of engineering, love, technology led to CS. And so it was almost like I didn't plan for those two superpowers to be so powerful together, but accidentally I ended up prioritizing them, and now we're here. And I remember it being it was such a big difference in worlds, where like I was this like social guy rolling up to CS class in like a tank top and like short shorts. And I'd go in and like wouldn't recognize a single person because they're like in their own world. And I was like the one guy who was like, oh, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And sticking out like that, I knew I was in the right place, because I was like, I'm going to take this other side of me that clearly a lot of the other peers in this class don't have. And I'm going to be able to combine that and with the abilities that I'm learning in this class. And so sure enough, here I am with like this unique combination of items.
Wow. That's beautiful. Yeah, I think that's a stark image of you and the tank in the CS class at UCLA.
Yeah.
Because I know what those
it was so interesting
classes look like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I did a few myself, and I was like, interesting. I think
yeah.
I had a similar, like, I was so analytical for being a philosophy major, and I was always like in this like between worlds. And I do believe that like analytical mind is somewhat genetic, and like my dad is very similar. Even though he
I'd
was
say
never
so.
formally educated, but like his mind just works very logically, and I think mine does as well.
I totally agree with this.
Yeah.
I think, and I see it with you too, David, where like, yeah, you just get certain things that would be somewhat harder for a less analytical mind. And that's okay, right? Like maybe a more creative mind, maybe creative's not the right word, but like a less analytical mind, but one that's more focused and better at doing other tasks would then be difficult for you or I. And so like really it's like these different types of minds where it's like either logic and math really makes sense to you or it's like it doesn't. And
Totally.
I've seen
Yeah,
this. Yeah.
as I delve deeper into the creator world, I've gotten so much more respect for things that are so much more subtle, like taste. It's such
Mhm.
a difficult thing to teach, and if you have it, you have it. If you don't, you don't. Right? Like taste
Yeah.
taste is like it's the culmination of your decades of training data that you've watched and listened to, and like music taste, fashion taste, like style taste, product taste. That is so hard to cultivate if you don't put in the time and you don't love it.
I love that you're using machine learning terms to describe a human.
Yeah.
We're closer to AGI than we think.
Yeah, no, I really see us as like just neural nets.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much you can learn about the human being from the way large language models are structured.
That's true.
Right? Like
I actually,
error,
oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, just like error, like learning from feedback, right? People fear
Mhm.
failure, but really that's the only way to learn. You have to fail and you have to fail and you have to fail and you have to be, you know, enthusiastic moving from failure to failure.
Yeah. Which is basically like training data in a way. It's
Exactly.
like success, not success. Okay, I got trained. Next iteration.
Yeah, and it's so important to curate your data set. Like if you're, brainlessly scrolling this like garbage feed of stuff into your brain, garbage in, garbage out, like, it's just not going to be good long term.
You're right. It's well said.
Yeah. How did you take that leap though? Because, you were at Boeing. Well, actually before that, how come you didn't start a company in college? I wanted to ask you this.
That's a great question. And I think it was a combination of my parents really telling me how important college was and that I finished it. And so I just always had it in my mind, like, yeah, I'm just going to finish this. I'm going to have this whole life to start a company. So I'm going to just finish this and get it on my belt. Like, I'm just going to like get it done and be like, all right, I accomplished that. What's next? And so there is that kind of voice in the back of my head. And then there is also another situation where like the CS curriculum is quite heavy, right? Like that's one of the hardest majors at UCLA was computer science. So like between my CS assignments and classes and my social situation where I was like, meeting all these people and going to events, it was like, I don't think I would have had time to start a company. And if I had tried to start a company, I would have had to kind of like half-ass one of those other things. So either like cut down way on building that network and my social life, or just not do as well in class. And so rather than making that decision, I decided, okay, like if I just go one more year, I'm going to no longer have these classes. Right. And so then I can remove that and maybe replace the class time with building a company. That's essentially what I did. Right. So I kept social and network growth and spending time on that, which I really enjoy and fills my cup. But now instead of at CS classes doing assignments, I'm now building something great.
I'm so passionate about this. I genuinely think you should not start a company in college. Like I am so passionate about this. It's crazy. Like
As someone who did, yeah.
As someone who did, like I've just been researching this for my next piece of content. Just like everybody that's done it talks about it. Like Paul Graham is literally quoted saying, "Are you crazy? Like to start a company in college? It's like having a kid in college. Like you're just not ready.
Exactly.
You're just not ready. And like it's such a special time to throw away, right? As like I had to sacrifice the random philosophy class that I could have taken, or the physics class I wanted to take, or the CS class I wanted to take. I could have learned how to code, and you have to give all that up. You have to, because the business just demands so much of you, right? Like I've seen your calendar; it's crazy. There's no time for exploration and networking and all this fun stuff, and more importantly, fulfilling and stuff that sets you up for the future, right?
It's extremely well said. I couldn't agree more. And the interesting thing is that the Valley, like the Tech Valley, Silicon Valley, and a lot of the VCs, the stigma is like, oh, you're not a dropout, then like you're not like crazy enough to change the world. Like I don't know if you've ever heard this,
Yeah.
but it's almost like they're excited more about the entrepreneurs that drop out, because it's like, oh, the opportunity was so amazing that they dropped out, and so I'm going to give them more of a shot. I've actually seen that firsthand, where it's like, oh, like they didn't drop out.
Yeah.
Persons two of the book.
Yeah. I've literally had my VC tell me that. Like there's a higher probability of success if you drop out, and the closer you are to completion that you drop out, the higher the likelihood of success. But see, I think they're making a classic mistake of confounding causation with correlation, right? They're thinking that because you dropped out really close to graduating, you will succeed, when in reality, it's the opportunity that's pulling you to drop out. But if the opportunity is not there and you still drop out, that's just a signal with no correlation with success. That could just be.
You're exactly right. Exactly right. It's like your success is based on your idea and the opportunity you have. Whether you have that opportunity during college or after college, it doesn't actually matter. It's not going to be like, oh, I'm going to all of a sudden be successful just because I dropped out versus if I did after college. And so I completely agree. It's like correlation, causation. I think it's the idea, and whether it's a great one and you execute well. Yeah, the execution's key.
Yeah, I mean, people always ask like, is it idea or execution? And it's really both. I as someone who tried my damn hardest on executing, like I think when you have a flawed idea, it's like no matter how hard you row, no matter how many 100-hour weeks you put in, it's just not gonna work long term. And people think of dropping out and they think of Zuckerberg, they think of even Spiegel, like they think of these stories that are very much the exception to the rule and not the rule.
Yes.
Right? Like
that's well said. Yeah.
Like Zuckerberg has built 4 products before he ever went to college or during college, right? And then he's been coding since he was like could walk. And he had Peter Thiel, Reid Hoffman, and Sean Parker, who all basically failed their first startups, helping him and guiding him as an 18-year-old to avoid all of their mistakes. These are legends that have, built Napster and got sued for $1 billion. Like that's the typical first startup outcome, right? Like Travis Kalanick, Scour, gets sued for whatever. Like it's super rare. For every first-time founder that succeeds, there's 9 that have failed. And like, we watch The Social Network and we obsess over the exception when it's not statistically likely that when you're in college, you're so emotionally immature and like distractible that you're going to start something that becomes the next Facebook. Right.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's like even Zuckerberg, he didn't drop out until they really had that traction.
Yep.
Right. And so like, almost like, well, I think the narrative for him was like, he was so smart that he was able to just like get his classes done in 10% of the time that everyone else did.
Yeah.
Right. So he had that 90% of the time to experiment and build face mash and try things like that. I don't know if that's normal, right? Like, especially as a CS major, it's like, it was just such tough curriculum, but I loved it, of course. But yeah, I mean, it's like, I guess to culminate the discussion, if you're going to drop out, make sure it's worth it. Like, make sure you have some traction before doing so. And if you're not quite sure on it, like I would say just finish college, then work on it after.
Yeah.
You're not going to be any less set up for success if you do that.
Yeah. People don't realize how much time there is to work. In fact, there's not many other options than work once you
Yeah.
graduate. So
Right. You got all this time now.
yeah, yeah, like working is all you do after you graduate. So why not just study for fun, while you're in school and like meet people. So hard
Yeah,
to meet people when you're not in college.
exactly. Learn the social skills because like college is a special time. You're not going to have a time like that for the rest of your life. So enjoy it while you have
Yeah, I'm gonna be like the flagship of this
it.
contrarian advice. Do not
Yeah.
start a
Yeah.
company in college.
Yeah. David,
Um,
you're going to be like on UCLA panels. You're going to be like,
don't
guys,
start a company.
don't drop out. Don't drop out.
No, there's like a bunch of college founders. I'm just like, dude, don't do it. Don't do it.
They're like, David, you started during college. Like, should I drop out? You're going to be like, no. They're like, what? I thought he was going to tell me to drop out.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I was just talking to a founder this weekend. He was like, yo, like I almost gave up on my startup, but I heard your talk like last year or a couple of years ago, and you inspired me, kept me going. And I was like, good, man. Good. But also don't drop out.
Yeah. Just like, by the way.
So you were working at Boeing and you did decide to drop out of Boeing. So tell us about that. Like,
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, that's a really life-defining moment, like leaving the stable job, leaving the well-trodden path, taking a risk on yourself. It's really scary for a lot of people. You're not only risking financial stuff, you're risking social ostracization, like not following the pack, which I think for most people is like that's the scariest part, like being made fun of. How did you overcome all that?
Making that leap. Yeah, it's I guess because for me, what was more scary was staying in a 9 to 5 and just kind of like having the same routine every day. That was more scary to me. And so when it came down to making that decision, it was like pretty easy for me because I was looking forward to it. And I, the Boeing experience was great for my journey because it really showed me, it gave me a view into that world, right? 200,000 people company. So massive enterprise company. You're kind of just you're like a number to them, right? Working your way up. And I had like a 30-minute commute each way, each day, right? So 30 minutes in, 30 minutes out. I was basically driving to LAX, the airport, each day. And so, yeah, it's like my day was like in traffic, get to the office, sit at my desk, which wasn't very collaborative. I had like a couple other people in my office and other desks. I like tried to make friends and I made friends with them, but it was just, pretty siloed and wasn't very like people weren't really, I guess, that happy. And so I would, drive in 30 minutes, kind of sit at the same desk, drive home. And that routine was really eye-opening for me. Like, oh man, this is what this is like. And so I was excited. Yeah, I was excited for like a new chapter. And so sure enough, when the spark for Popl came along, I was ecstatic. I was like, okay, this could be something that I go full in on. And when we started getting some traction, that's when I took the leap. I was like, okay, I'm gonna leave this, but I'm excited for it because the opportunity cost and the opportunity of this new startup is much greater than if I just stayed at Boeing, just kind of like climbing the corporate ladder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you felt the matrix for a second. You were like, gotta unplug.
Exactly.
I think it takes a very unique kind of person. So it's all the credit to you for doing that.
I think that's so right, and it's often I have to often remind myself that like not everyone has that, right? Like some people, they are in that position and they're like, I love this, and there was a lot of great things about the job, right? Like I was learning new things every day. I was working with very smart people. Everyone around me was very intelligent and deserved a spot at that company. And Boeing is a world-class company, right? And so I can totally see, and I have to often remind myself that, like, you know what, that wasn't even that bad. That was like a great situation and a great outcome. And to many people, that they're happy with that.
Yeah, it reminds me of Cypher from the Matrix that like betrays Neo because he wants to go back to the Matrix. I think
Oh
it's
yeah,
so
that's right.
real. Like sometimes the realities of entrepreneurship is truly too painful for people, and like not everyone is cut out for that kind of lifestyle, even if they think it is the right thing to do, if it's prestigious, if it's going to make you rich. It's just not a good time. And unless you're wired very uniquely for leadership and for innovation and all this stuff, you have to really think twice about being an entrepreneur, because everyone now
Yes.
is trying to make you an entrepreneur. Everyone online is like, quit your job,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Like, wait, hold on. Most
Yeah.
people are wired for it.
Yeah. No, it is very true. And you're almost leaving to work harder.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not excited about that, it's like, this is maybe not the right move, because at Boeing, it's like after 5 p.m., you can do whatever you want.
Oh,
You can just do it. You could turn your brain off if you wanted to, right? And on the weekends, the same thing. I am not opening my computer. I am just doing whatever I want. And that lifestyle can be appealing to many people, and there's nothing wrong with it. And but if you start your own company, that's not going to be the case, right?
yeah. And I think most people don't realize that until they do it. That like when they hear, oh, after 6 p.m. I don't have to work anymore, they're like, wait, what do you mean? Isn't that just life? Like, no, it's not. If you start a company, you cannot turn your brain off. You're constantly thinking. If not on your computer, you're thinking about the problems. This person you have to hire, this person you have to fire, this product you have to build, this thing that's not working. Like, it's like an obsession that you cannot turn.
It's you.
Yeah.
It's like you. It's like,
yeah.
It like, becomes you.
You have a crush.
It consumes you.
You have a crush on this girl and you can't stop thinking about her. It's just like that, but with your product.
It's almost like more time consuming than having a baby.
That's what I'm
like
saying.
In a way.
Yeah.
In a way.
Like, it's more time consuming.
Yeah, right.
Because it's like all the time.
Yeah.
Like first moment to wake up all the way to the last moment. If you have a baby, assuming like, you're a couple, you have time to yourself, so you switch off, you go to work, you come back. The baby's not 24. You're not holding the baby 24/7. The startup, you really are.
Yeah, but this is discussed by two guys who have never had babies.
That's true.
So maybe we just don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Probably. I think.
But yeah, exactly. It's like the startup is, especially if it's your passion, it's like all the time. You wake up, you think about it. You go to bed, you think about it. And honestly, that's almost what is needed in order to succeed. Because if you're not that focused and obsessed with it, then maybe someone else will.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. The part that is that it's necessary to be that obsessed. It's necessary to go through all that pain. And so if you're not, then it might not be the right path for you. So I guess with that being said, because I'm always trying to like dissuade people from starting, because I know the right person is going to hear that and start anyway.
Yeah,
right. And that's how you know you're the right person, if you're not going to listen. What did you personally get out of the startup experience so far? What have you been most proud of? What have been your biggest challenges? And what are your long-term goals?
Of just being in the startup world in general?
I guess like, what did Jason get out so far of building Popl? If let's say Popl disappeared tomorrow, like what is your biggest takeaway?
It's a great question. Well, the first thing I'll say is that I love what I'm doing. And I love the excitement of every day being different. And I also love building a great culture while adding value to so many people. Right? That's so fulfilling to me. It's like we're building this product that people get value from and enjoy using. And we're doing it with such a great group of people who all enjoy working together. And so if anything, the first thing I've realized is that I love this, and I don't think I'll ever not be a CEO again. Maybe I'll never not be a co-founder / like early founding team member of a company. Like maybe one day I'm like not a CEO, but maybe a CTO, whatever it is. But like, I don't think I will ever go to like, a normal 9 to 5 or any kind of other type of work situation after just enjoying this one so much. Additionally, I think like with our team being so big at this point, coming up on 50 people, it's been awesome building a community. The retreats we go on, the meetings we have, the amount of people throughout the day that I talk to, right? Like I get messages from all different departments who, come to me with questions, and I enjoy that. Like I like being in conversations about different topics and about different problems to solve with different parts of the company. And so I think that like you say, you're right. Not everyone's meant to be a entrepreneur or even like a founder. But I think I am. And that's like one of the biggest takeaways I've noticed so far.
I think you are too, man.
Thank you.
Like I watch you like do your thing, and I'm just like, wow, he is built for this.
My God, thank you. I really appreciate that. And likewise.
Thank you. Yeah,
likewise.
I think the longer I've worn the CEO hat, I become more and more like drawn to more like individual tasks, because to be CEO you really have to build relationships. And
yes,
maybe I'm just not fully there yet, but I see you do it and I'm like, that's not me. Like I'm not just like super out there. And like it drains my energy sometimes, to be honest, and I think
no, I totally get it.
What are some of the biggest challenges you faced building this company?
Yeah, well, pivoting is never easy. And so going from like this initial form of what we built to where we are now definitely came with challenges. Having to change our voice, having to understand our customer each time. Like the customer buying NFC tags different than the customer who is signing up for 1,000 numbers on Popl teams. And so having to learn those customers continuously while building, definitely a challenge. And I feel like we've embraced it with grace. So really kudos to our team. And now, some of the challenges, which are pretty standard to B2B SaaS, is like not only closing the teams, but retaining them, right? We want to retain these teams and make sure they're happy and make sure they're fully bought in. And that's a challenge, right? Especially with a team of 1,000. Team of 1,000 gets set up with a couple point of contacts, like, 1 or 2 people. You got to get those 1,000 people bought in to this product that they don't necessarily know about yet. And so that takes product education. That takes good onboarding. That takes like them understanding the value quickly. And so all of that is like, nuanced and something that our team's constantly working on.
Dude, just send them the TikTok.
Here you go. Yeah. Onboarding email. TikTok. Click this to see. That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
Try it. Maybe it's a viral loop. Who knows?
Yeah, you're right. It's like, and that's another big thing is like experimenting. It's like you got to experiment.
Yeah. So I think, that's another benefit of not starting a company too early, is that I think so many first-time founders succeed with a B2B company. And it's impossible to know, like for me personally, I'm international, never worked a corporate job, let alone one in America. I don't even know what B2B means or what the business to business market looks like until I've started this company. So now I know like all the software I use, all this, like all the problems within the company that could be solved. But if you start in college, all you know is B2C, and B2C is the hardest, most competitive, most cutthroat industry you can possibly do. Yeah, it's tough. And you need like crazy retention rates, crazy virality. And and I think like, when I look at the examples, like Elon worked at Rocket Science Games, before he started Zip2, which then pivoted to B2B, right? And nobody knows about that. Steve Jobs worked at Atari. Like Jack Dorsey worked at Odeo before pivoting to Twitter. Like YouTube, LinkedIn, PayPal. Everyone was at PayPal, YouTube, LinkedIn, Yelp. So many founders worked a job first. And I think it's so like counterculture to work a job before trying to start a company. But I actually think that's a higher probability path.
I love that takeaway. I'm reading Shoe Dog right now, which is Phil Knight's story. Phil Knight's the founder of Nike. And what was really interesting is he was at this law firm. Working a 9-to-5. And at the law firm, he was learning because they were working with companies. They were working with a wide range of companies because they were providing law services to them. And this was anywhere from tech companies to product companies to PLGs, all of these different types of companies. And he was learning what was causing them to fail and succeed, which is so interesting because like as a law firm, he was kind of like in the books, and they also had like an accounting arm. So they were like in the books doing accounting and also learning about their goals and their different interactions with customers. And so in doing that, which is like exactly what you're saying, he picked up a lot of like, okay, this is working for a lot of companies. This is not. And so when he eventually started Nike, he was able to incorporate a lot of those learnings.
Yeah. Alternatively, you have to learn the hard way, like this guy, and make all the mistakes yourself. And then learn from that, which is so painful and like so unnecessary and costly from a capital perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is like, as a great entrepreneur, like that you are, David, right? You're like, you didn't fail, right? You learned. Like this is a great, you're on your journey, whether it's with this company or this company. You are on that journey, and it's not a failure. It's a learning experience. And so I think, the great entrepreneurs, that's how they see it. Like even the Elons of the world, they have failed too. And they didn't see it as a failure. Instead of it's just a stepping stone to the next thing.
Appreciate that, man. 100%. I think there'll be many things in the future. And, oh man, I feel so well equipped to deal with them because I've been through the ringer. Yeah, I guess to end off, do you have any advice you'd give to your younger self?
Well, I think I'm happy with my path that I ended up being on. But I think, let's see, if I was going to, it's a tough one for me because I'm happy with my path that I ended up.
Like I'm pretty well for you.
Like I focused on the things that I'm excited about. I'm building a company that's very me, and that it's like got a social component and it's got a B2B component, which I'm enjoying. I guess, because I didn't really see this coming, telling myself starting Popl that it's like, it's a long journey, and what you're going to be building in 6 years, we're about 4 years in now. What you're going to be building in 4 years is going to be vastly different than what you're building day one. Because day one, I was like, oh, we're just going to sell these things and build this great company. Sell these NFC tags and just like be a TikTok product. And that was like what I thought we were going to be. But I didn't, but like in this journey, I've realized that like, oh, okay, each year is different. Each year is different. And each year your company and what you're selling is going to change. And so kind of like telling myself and letting myself know like, hey, make sure you're experimenting and understand that change in the product is expected. I think that would be a nice little, just like pat on the back and reminder.
That's beautiful. Yeah. In the spirit of this podcast, finding focus, what's the number one thing you're focused on right now?
making great hires to our team, and great hires, increasing growth, and increasing retention. Those are my three. It's like if what I'm working on in my time is not one of those three, I take a good long thought on it. Should I be doing this right now? And so, having those priorities is really helpful for a CEO who has unlimited number of things they could be doing to really like hone in on this is what's most important.
Yeah. And
so, in the spirit of finding focus, when you have those pillars, those North Stars, work backwards. Here are my goal. Here are my 3, 2, 1, whatever things that I'm working on. So take a look at my to-do list. Make sure that my to-dos are in line with those. And if they're not, throw them on the backlog.
Yes, sir. Well,
which is a technical term for anyone who doesn't understand, for put it on the lower priority list and do it later.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure you're learning a lot too about hiring and retention and all that.
Totally.
So many principles.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And you're the expert on this kind of thing.
Make some videos about that.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, it's been such a pleasure, Jason, as always. Really appreciate you being on the show. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, David, thank you for having me. Incredible questions. And, it's the reason why we're such good friends, just like such a natural one-on-one. And yeah, awesome time. I look forward to the next one.
Amazing. I'll see you soon.
All right, David.
Bye.